Right, so I'm a little bit late to the party as the race was about 6 weeks ago at the time of recording, but I just wanted to do a video to recap my first ever full distance Ironman, which was Ironman Wales at the beginning of September. So I did end up entering a year in advance as I knew that the spaces get filled up really quickly, and I'm glad I did as it did sell out pretty quick. We knew we wanted to make a bit of a weekend of it, so we decided we were going to travel up on the Friday to Tenby. We're going to stay there Friday, Saturday and Sunday night and then come back home to Devon on Monday. And I have to say a big thank you to my wife Stacey for sorting out the hotel. The location was absolutely perfect. I'll put some pictures on screen and you'll see that it's literally just outside the start of the red carpet at the finish line. So absolutely spot on location. Getting through Tenby on the Friday was a little bit nuts. I didn't expect it to be that busy on the Friday, to be honest. There's loads of people about, but we got to the hotel, got ourselves sorted, and we were away. So after dropping all of my stuff off, including the bike in the hotel room, we headed down to registration where I registered for the event and picked up my transition bags. For the rest of the afternoon and evening, we just chilled out, kept everything as stress-free as possible, even with a little one on tow, but yep, all good, no issues whatsoever. On the Saturday morning, I decided I'd go for a little bit of a jog around Tenby just to see a bit of the area and maybe try and do some of the run course. Nothing crazy or anything like that, just a nice easy steady plod. And yeah, the weather was absolutely perfect. I then went back to the hotel room and sorted out all of my transition bags following a checklist that I had on my phone as to what should go in each of the bags, so I knew exactly what was going in. And then I took them over to transition. I wrapped the bike as early as I could just to get it out of the way and know that's all dealt with. And then, like the previous day, just chilled out for the rest of the day. Had a explore of the beach where the swim start was going to be. It was absolutely heaving, but it was a great atmosphere and you could tell everyone was really excited for the weekend. Made sure to get to bed nice and early on the Saturday night, and surprisingly, I actually slept pretty well, so that was a bonus. On the Sunday, I woke up around 4:15, and then at 4:30, I headed down to the hotel restaurant where they very kindly actually put on a buffet, like a full spread buffet for all the competitors, and that's something they didn't have to do, so that was really appreciated. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, so I just had some white toast with jam on. I think I had 3 slices. What did make me laugh was there was another first timer staying at the hotel, and he was scoffing down a full English at 4:30, so I hope that his bowels stayed alright for the rest of the day, but yeah, that was certainly something I wasn't going to risk. Once I'd finished that, I arrived at transition for when it opened at 5 o'clock, put my bottles on my bikes, few last minute checks, make sure everything was good to go, and then I headed back to the hotel room to get changed in my tri-suit. Now when we were on Tenby North Beach, the nerves were kicking in at that point. And something I didn't expect was the mass start where literally everyone runs at the same time. Obviously you seed yourself depending on when you think you'll finish your swim, but it was a case of literally just everyone following this funnel. I expected it to be more like 70.3 Weymouth that I did in 2021, where they let off, let's say, 5 people every few seconds. But no, it wasn't like that. My breathing on the swim was a little bit all over the place. I think it was just because of the nerves, but that did eventually settle down and I just cracked on with the first lap. The first lap did seem to take quite a long time actually. Well, certainly in my head while I was swimming. And then I was struggling with my breathing again at the Aussie exit, but it was quite reassuring knowing that I'd done the 1 lap and I only had the 1 to go. So got back in the sea and cracked on with the second. It turns out I actually had a really good swim as I finished it in 1 hour, 4 minutes and 25 seconds. At this point, I was really glad to get the swim done and I started heading up the zigzags. Thankfully, I was the perfect number in that I was positioned right on the end, the very corner peg, and I had plenty of room around me to get my trainers on. Something I did do, which I would recommend to anyone doing it next year, would be to follow Triathlon Dan's advice and take your wetsuit off fully at the pegs and then run with it to transition with it hooked over your shoulders, carrying the arms and the legs of the wetsuit or holding them in your hands. it made things a lot easier, and I didn't have to worry about the wetsuit drying in the run to transition, which would have made it harder to get off. On the run to transition, I was moving with purpose, but I wasn't going full gas, and I knew I wanted to be as efficient as possible in the tent, so I did things like putting my number on and put my helmet on as I was leaving the tent to get to my bike, rather than just doing it while I sit down in the tent. Considering the kilometre-long run to the tent, I was really pleased with my transition one, which I did in 8 minutes and 36 seconds. Onto the bike now, and the first 2 hours of the bike actually went really well. I did feel like I was shifting, but not going crazy. Power wasn't silly high or anything like that, and I was averaging over 30 kilometers per hour. Now, my nutrition was absolutely spot on for the first half of the bike course. I was making sure to get through 1 bottle an hour, which had precision hydration 1500 in, and carb powder. So that was 1 bottle an hour, and I was also alternating between bars and chews, and they were every 20 minutes. Now, around the halfway point is where this all went to pot, if I'm being completely honest, and probably my biggest mistake of the race was made. I'm going to do a separate video where I share the mistakes I made during the Ironman and some of the lessons learned, so keep an eye out for that one soon. The hills on the big loop were quite tough, and I was starting to suffer from cramp at this point, both my quads and my hamstrings. It did get to a point where I thought I might have to get off. I was going up, what's it called? Not Saunders, the other one. Wiseman's Bridge, that's it. And I was on the verge of coming off through the cramp, but thankfully I managed to hold it off and get up there without having to come off the bike. Now, I didn't have any particular issues with comfort or my position on the bike or anything like that, but I was certainly glad to get off the bike and start the marathon. Towards the beginning of the bike, I was thinking, oh, maybe I could actually do this in around 6 hours, but when I had this little hiccup around the halfway point, I had to adjust my expectations. So as long as I had done it in around 6.5 hours, I'd been happy. And I ended up doing it in 6:25:24, so pleased with that. Coming into T2 now, I was massively worried that I was going to really cramp up when I try and swing my leg off over the bike, but thankfully that hadn't happened. I think I managed to save myself a bit in that second half of the bike course in holding off the cramp. Now, T2 again was efficient, but I tried doing something which didn't end up paying off. Again, I'll explain everything in this separate video, but I ended up having some issues at the very start of the run. Now, of course, during an Ironman, especially your first one, you're bound to go off too quickly on the run. That's something I definitely did, and it wasn't helped by the atmosphere, which at this point was absolutely crazy. The big hill out of Tenby was bigger than I expected, to be completely honest. It turns out when I went for that quick run on the Saturday morning, I went the wrong way. But yeah, not too bad in the grand scheme of things, and the flat sections were actually a real relief, both on the way up and the way down. Now, some mistakes with my nutrition, or possibly just the length of the day, meant that I had to stop for poopy twice on the run, but thankfully I didn't take too much time and I could just get cracking again. So you do 4 laps in Tenby, and the first few were okay, but I was really quite struggling by the time the last 10k came round. Funnily enough, Stacey saw me on that last lap and said that I wasn't looking too good. I didn't see her, but it was things like not tapping the signs and things like that. I was just tunnel vision, just get to the end. I was trying to not worry about anything else going on around me at that point. And it was just a case of really just gritting my teeth and surviving at that point. Now, I am really proud to say that I didn't actually walk any of the marathon other than the aid stations to make sure I got fluids in. There was a lot of people walking that hill, both up and down. But so I didn't walk any of that, just the aid stations, and I was really quite proud of that. Now, as I turned the corner to see the red carpet, a sense of relief just came over me. I made sure to try and slow down on the red carpet, as I did hear that the final timing mat is at the beginning, not the end, so you don't have to rush the red carpet. Take the atmosphere in, look for your family and friends. Thankfully, I did manage to spot Stacey and Jack, so I went over and saw them quickly and then headed down to the end of the red carpet. So my Garmin said the marathon was just a little bit over, which I did in 4 hours, 3 minutes and 32 seconds. In terms of the actual marathon distance, it was just over 4 hours. So considering how hilly it was and the fact that it was my first ever marathon, I was really pleased with that. So my overall time was 11 hours, 45 minutes and 43 seconds. And that actually put me in the top 10% of all finishers. Although I said to myself, I just want to finish and enjoy the day, deep down, I really wanted to go under 12 hours for my first Ironman. And so to knock almost 15 minutes off that and finish in 11:45:43, I was absolutely over the moon. Now, at this point, it does feel like it was a lifetime ago, and it took me a little while to actually start feeling quite normal again. The first few days were a real struggle. I really struggling to walk or anything like that. But after that, I started to feel a bit more normal. So as I said earlier, I'm going to do a separate video on the lessons learned from the Ironman and things I'll do differently next time. So be sure to keep an eye out for that one. Thank you so much for watching this one. If you've got any questions about Ironman Wales or my experience, please do drop them in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.